Good afternoon, I'm Jojo Colvin and this is Glaze News. We're coming to you today from Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin to see what makes this place so pleasant. This afternoon's top segments include housing, public spaces, boundaries, hangout spots, schools, transportation, and businesses. Before we get into all the fun, let's get a brief overview. Over to you, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Jojo. Here we have 34 square miles of eastern Racine County that Mount Pleasant occupies. The western border over here is Interstate 94, which separates Mount Pleasant from cities like Yorkville and Union Grove. Another man-made border is the southern border, which is First Street. This separates Mount Pleasant from cities like Somers. The lower eastern border over here is a natural border of Lake Michigan. The upper eastern border, as well as the northern borders, are made up of random streets that are kind of cut out that create the Mount Pleasant County. Over here we have Sturvant, Wisconsin, and this southern border from Sturvant to Mount Pleasant is Brown Road, but the eastern, western, and northern borders are comprised of random streets as well. Back to you, Jojo.
A promising area indeed. Thank you for that report. I have the Demography and Health Technical Advisor, Christian Snyder, with me joining us to give us some insight on the population. Thank you for coming all the way from Washington, D.C., Christian.
Of course. Thank you, Jojo and Glaze News, for having me. So according to the United States Census Bureau, population-wise, we're looking at 27,597 people as of 2022 for Mount Pleasant. The racial makeup is 78.69% white, 8.49% African American, 2.62% Asian, 0.35% Pacific Islander, and 0.0% is two or more races, and 2.7% other races. And fun fact, Mount Pleasant's most common origin is Mexico, India, and China.
Great visual. Can we get an insight into the housing market?
Yeah, sorry for all those numbers. I'll keep it brief. There are a total of 11,827 housing units. The median home income is $250,000, with a property tax of $18.9 per $1,000. The median housing income is $74,524.
Well, thank you for all those statistics, Christian.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get some on-site viewing from Sydney and Sage. In the meantime, I'll send Jocelyn to do an on-site segment of the public spaces of Mount Pleasant. Over to you, Sydney.
Hi, yes, the neighborhoods in Mount Pleasant are beautiful. It's exciting to hear that this community is growing with new construction on old, unused farmland. As for the elderly population, Mount Pleasant has 12 assisted living facilities. Sage is currently at one. She can give you some insight.
For the elderly population, Mount Pleasant has 12 assisted living facilities. I'm currently at Pleasant Point Senior Living. I can give you some insight. The residents are lovely and find this place very enjoyable. There are around 6,456 seniors and 22,272 adults living in this area. This may mean...
Hi, I had more stats. So the median age of Mount Pleasant is 46.7, which is significantly higher than most areas in Wisconsin. The average age in Wisconsin as a whole is 39.9. That's like a whole 20% difference. All right, bye.
Thank you, Christian. Back to you, Jojo.
Everyone, let's hear from Sydney to get some insight on places of worship. Over to you, Sydney.
I'm here at St. Paul the Apostle Catholic Church, where people of the Catholic belief come here every Sunday to worship. Other various options Mount Pleasant has to offer is Lutheran churches, Baptist churches, and non-denominational churches. One ethnic church that Mount Pleasant has to offer is Primera Iglesia Luterana Church, which is a Hispanic Lutheran church.
Thank you, Sydney, for that insight on places of worship. I'd like some updates on public spaces. How are you doing over there, Jocelyn?
I don't get paid enough to relocate like this. But here we are at Smolensky Park in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's filled with parents and all of their children. Mount Pleasant is actually home to 14 parks across 300 acres of park land. Most of those parks include basketball courts, baseball diamonds, and picnic facilities.
Wow, what a beautiful park. Thank you for that, Jocelyn. Are people actually utilizing these spaces?
I'll send you over to Sydney, who will be talking about the park district.
I'll be talking about the Park District, where they hold summer programs for residents and non-residents. During school, the Park District serves as a place for the community to come and do park activities.
Thank you, Sydney. Speaking of kids in the area, let's get a snippet at what schooling looks like. Sage, over to you.
Hi again. I'm here at Westridge Elementary School. Overall, Mount Pleasant is ranked 156 in the entire state. Schools generally are not religiously driven, but there are some private school options for grade school and for college.
Hi, I don't have any stats, but I just want to talk about transportation. Public transportation is not very accessible. There are some safety measures in place though: bike lanes, crosswalks, and road signs. The most predominant transportation is private vehicles.
Thank you, Sage. And Christian? I'll be coming back to get a report on some businesses. Speaking of businesses, there are 959 businesses that reside in Mount Pleasant, such as Advocate Aurora Health, CNH Industrial, Foxconn Industrial Internet, InkSync Arator, and SC Johnson are leading employers. Let's get some insight into the services and resources that Mount Pleasant has to offer. Jocelyn, over to you.
You really have me everywhere. I'm at the YMCA, which has an inside aquatic center, a weight training area, as well as community development programs. In terms of fitness, Mount Pleasant has 5 public gyms available with various equipment. Options for a post-workout meal or just eating healthy in general include the Longboard, which is an American Caribbean restaurant, and it's known for their seafood. There are also juice bars as well as a Whole Foods market that offer healthy alternatives.
There are also a few ethnic restaurants in Mount Pleasant as well. One is O&H Danish Bakery, Javier's Cuisine, and Jose Blues Sombrero.
Thank you for this report, Jocelyn and Christian. It looks like there's a lot to do out there. Oh. Hello? It looks like we're getting a report from Sydney out in the field. Over to you, Sydney.
Sorry for the last minute report. Mount Pleasant has really lived up to its name in regards to the lack of decay. The community has no level of noticeable pollution, no visible trash in the street, or abandoned areas and vehicles. There was no significance of homeless population present either.
Sorry to interrupt, just one more report on politics and media. Neighboring cities tend to be a political battleground between the Democratic and Republican parties. Compared to them, Mount Pleasant tends to vote more conservatively. Most voters predominantly vote red, which is supported by the Republican Party affiliated signs we saw on numerous lawns throughout the city.
Thank you for the other side of the story, Sydney. It's great to hear the duality of this community. And thank you, Jocelyn, for the report on political prevalence in this community. Live at the studio, we have a special, well-renowned public health researcher, Dr. Sage Carlson.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. With 4 years of experience in research, we would love to gain some understanding on what chronic conditions reside in this community.
So some chronic conditions we have that Mount Pleasant faces are mental health, suicide and self-injury, as well as alcohol and substance use, access and affordable health care, and chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart failure, and stroke. Some major hospitals we have in this area are Aurora Medical Center, Ascension Wisconsin Healthcare, and we do have 5 about dentists and eye doctors in the area as well.
Are there any collected statistics and data to show how readily available healthcare services are in Mount Pleasant?
Yeah.
Oh, I hear you're looking for stats. Well, 5% of the residents in Racine County are uninsured, making it lower than the state average of 5.5% and the United States average of 8.8%. Hispanic and Latinos are at the highest rate of uninsured in the country at 12.7%, and non-Hispanic white is at 3.4%. Some other stats include private insurance 71.7%, public insurance 36.6%, Medicare 8.5%, and Medicaid 20.3%. Primary care providers 45.2 providers per 100,000 residents. Mental health care providers 170.8 providers per 100,000 residents. Access to healthcare service rate is 5.8% reported going to a doctor or nurse practitioner as a primary source of care, while 28% reported going to urgent care or walk-in. Okay, back.
Okay, thank you, Christian. And so, Dr. Carlson, how are the uninsured, underinsured, and uninsured people? How do they access care?
Well, both hospital centers found in Mount Pleasant offer health insurance marketplace for those who are underinsured or uninsured patients.
Oh, well, thank you for your knowledge. It sounds like healthcare is readily available in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, guys, all the way from the studio, we've got JoJo himself.
Hi guys, I decided to come out into the field with Jocelyn today, and today we are at the Mount Pleasant Police Department, and we're going to go in and see if we can get an interview with them.
All right, hi, I'm Jocelyn. I'm here with
Officer Garnier.
Records Clerk Erica.
Captain Eric Brulich.
and today we're at the Mount Pleasant Police Department. So you guys, can you just tell me about like the most prominent issues that are faced or that occur in Mount Pleasant?
Well, Mount Pleasant's kind of uniquely situated between obviously Chicago and Milwaukee, so we get a lot of traffic coming through. And during the day, I think the population is 28,000, but during the day it can be upwards of over 80,000. So we just have a lot of traffic coming through. So a lot of our problems during the main part of the day, I would say, are a lot of traffic related. We get a lot of traffic accidents. We do have several businesses that are targeted often for retail thefts. So like retail thefts are very common. We have all varieties of crimes.
And then for emergent situations, would you say that hospitals and just like healthcare facilities in general are nearby, or are they kind of like farther out?
We have two that are close by. So if you're closer on the west end, we have Aurora that just opened 2 years ago,
Yeah,
a year ago.
something like that.
And then we have Wheaton, which is on 31 Spring Street, or Ascension is what they're called now.
Yeah.
If we can get people that, you know, by the end of the night when they're going to bed saying that I feel safe in my own home because I know Mount Pleasant police are out patrolling, that's what we want them to feel here.
All right, guys, we really appreciated this. Thank you for all the information.
Hi everyone, welcome to our evening news segment. Joining me is community health nurse with a familiar face, Jocelyn Jado. She finally decided to put her nursing degree to use. Along with her is another community health nurse, Andrea Villa. Let's give a big welcome to them, everyone.
Hi, JoJo. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Of course, not a problem. Thank you both for joining me. We'd love your insight into Mount Pleasant's community as community health nurses.
Hi, yes. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was what Healthy People is, specifically what Healthy People 2030 is. It's essentially a program made by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services with the goal to improve the health and well-being of Americans by addressing critical health-related risk factors, promoting equity, and increasing access to resources within our community. It's released every decade, so the 2030 one that we will be discussing today was launched back in 2020. It's viewed as a plan that we will have these goals met by 2030. Andrea will talk a bit more about this.
Yeah, so it's important to highlight the risk factors for Healthy People 2030 as it pertains to Mount Pleasant. So I've worked with Dr. Sage Carlson on these risk factors, and she's discovered chronic diseases and mental health that have been prevalent. So as a community health nurse, it's my responsibility to work alongside these resources and advocate for policies that reduce health disparities and educate the residents about preventative measures.
Yeah, so the big question is, how has Mount Pleasant aligned with the plan of Healthy People 2030?
Well, Mount Pleasant is a part of the Racine County, so I'll be discussing how Racine County has addressed this. So Racine County Public Health Department offers programs that not only focus on chronic disease prevention, but also immunization and family health services. This aligns with Healthy People's 2030 goals of improving vaccination rates and managing chronic conditions.
That's great. And as Jocelyn had discussed previously in an earlier segment, community wellness programs like the YMCA offer those fitness classes and walking groups that help promote physical activity and healthier lifestyles that are key modifiable risk factors against obesity and correlation to chronic diseases. Thank you, you guys. Are there any other preventative measures that could be taken to decrease these risk factors?
Yeah, actually. So before I get into what prevention strategies I want to implement within the community, I wanted to kind of discuss what the current state of Mount Pleasant is. Overall, Mount Pleasant has a great strength with healthcare access. They have close proximity to reputable healthcare providers like Ascension All Saints and Aurora Healthcare. By having access to these facilities, residents can manage their chronic diseases and receive preventative care. They also do a great job with their public health programs that deal with disease management and health education. The only counter-argument for the state of their community health would be the prevalent issues of chronic health conditions like diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. But overall, Mount Pleasant does a great job. So there are various primary prevention strategies that could be implemented at Mount Pleasant. I want to break it down into primary, secondary, and tertiary. As for primary, we are looking at educating, getting those vaccines out, and promoting a healthy lifestyle. For secondary prevention strategies, we're looking at screening, so doing those mammograms, those pap smears, colonoscopies. It could be as simple as checking blood pressures. As for tertiary, we will be looking with stopping disease progression. We want to be making sure those mental health illnesses are getting counseling, those with high blood pressure are taking their meds and managing it. Those with diabetes are managing their sugar levels with insulin.
That all sounds so amazing. Thank you for all that you guys do as community health nurses here in Mount Pleasant.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. She wears too many hats around here. Thank you all for joining us on today's news report as we all discovered what makes Mount Pleasant so pleasant.